I went to school in the Gorbals, you see, that's why I know all the Glasgow bit, you see. I was born in Belfast. What a fucking bus journey that was in the morning. These two Irish guys come out of the pub, he says, Jesus Mick, we've missed the last bus. Paddy said, we'll go into the depot, we'll pinch one. He said, get a double-decker, I'm wanting to smoke on the way home.
Happened to Bill Tennant many years ago when he was fronting STV's 6 o'clock magazine, and on this occasion all Bill had to do at the end of the programme was introduce the day's star guest and then say goodnight. Now the star guest on this fateful occasion happened to be Fanny Craddock. He introduced Fanny Craddock. She happened to make that night a plate of donuts, wonderful recipe, plate of donuts up to the camera, and Bill, as per his script, walked back into the shot and said, there we are, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you again tomorrow. Meantime, I hope all your donuts turn out like Fanny's. And there was an occasion a few years ago, I'm sure you remember, when Alex Higgins got himself into a scrape again, and he was fined, I think it was 500 quid by the governing body of the sport for urinating into a flower display at a late night practice session. Remember when it happened? True story, 500 quid he was fined for it. Ted obviously saw this as a golden chance. He'd been up all night working on it. The next afternoon Higgins is playing, it's been all over the papers about this fine, and Ted uttered the immortal phrase, yes, I think Alex fancies a slash at this plant. Then, of course, is my good friend and colleague Richard Park, who's done for football commentary what Bible John did for dancing at the Barrowland. Good night to you all from a very handy Windon. A couple of years ago, the morning's programme opened up as Peter West said, good morning, welcome back to Headingley for the 4th Cornhill Test. England against the West Indies. We pick up the story of the morning's play. England are 167 for 6. The bowler's holding, the batsman's Willie. Frank Boff in the grandstand studio at the time says, well, what about that? What a great boat race. Oxford have finally won it. Let's go back to the Thames because Peter West should have with him now the victorious Oxford crew. So back they go, and there's Peter West on the towpath, no crew. Said, ah, well, Frank, as you said, we'd hope to have the boys with us, but they've waited 7 years for this win. You can imagine how delighted they are. They're celebrating in tremendous high spirits. In fact, they're down at the Thames just now, dipping their cocks in the river. Great example of that. Many years ago when Henry Longhurst was still alive, and he and Peter Allis were the double act as the golf commentary team. And it was the European Women's Open they were covering, and Nancy Lopez Melton as she now is not the hardest thing to look at on a golf course. I just sunk a fairly long putt in the 18th, and as she bent down to retrieve the ball from the hole, the cameraman got a glorious close-up shot of the rear view. Now Peter Allis, not looking at his monitor at all, turned at that precise moment to Henry and said, tell me, Henry, would you say this is one of the prettier holes in golf? Poor old Henry also wasn't watching his monitor. He said, yes, Peter, but it's not as tight as it used to be. Great story, and I think it was a 1976 match. We played England at Hampden. Martin Chivers was the England centre forward. Big Jim had kicked him up and down Hampden for 90 minutes. And in the last minute, there was a corner to England, and they were jostling in the penalty box. And Chivers' nerve finally snapped, and he turned to Big Jim Holton and he said, see you, Holton, you're nothing but a dirty big Scottish bastard. And Holton says, and don't you ever forget it. I'll always remember Bobby there telling me why that terrible disaster happened in 1961 when England beat us 9-3 at Wembley. He said it was all down to the fact that the ball was orange. Right, Bobby? So that was the reason. He said Calder and I wouldn't kick it and Haffy wouldn't touch it. And finally, the big musical story of the day, of course, was that Tim Rice and Andrew Lloyd Webber are finally getting together again to write another musical. The last one, of course, was Evita, which was a great success for them. This one they're actually basing on the life and career of Sidney Devine. It's a tremendously interesting project. It's to be called Superstar. Jesus Christ.
Do you know what I think? Do you know anything about football at all?
I'll give you one answer, no.
Well, everybody agrees with you for a change. I mean, know what we think? We think that you know fuck all.
I'm pleased to hear you say that, because that's entirely my opinion.
Come on. Do you know what you're saying? He said more caps than anybody else. Right, we'll go off football. We'll talk about Tommy Docherty. Right. Tommy Docherty, well-known club act. You said that when you were told by Clem Dane that Tommy Docherty was coming up here to Scotland to do an after-dinner thing, what did you say? You didn't believe it. He was up here sniffing about for a job, and you didn't think you agreed with that. Is that right? Am I right or am I wrong?
I gave that as my opinion. It may be right or it may be wrong, but I hope he stays there.
Right, I don't know how you can say that about the guy. You don't know if he's after a job, but what do you think of him personally?
He's a bit of a chocolate soldier. He would eat himself.
I mean, that's no fair. That's no fair at all. What about yourself, wee man, eh? You've not been doing too well in the wee job stakes recently. We heard you get the bump for the Daily Mirror. That's how you're working for Evening Times.
That is rubbish.
Come on, you can own up. You've had yards of publicity. You've been on that radio ever since Seville. You had to put your own hand. You had to put your hand in your own pocket for a change. What was that all about?
Yes, I did pay my own way for certain circumstances, but I think there were times you have to stand up and be counted, and can I just say once again, you've got to stand up and be counted. But as I say, my job is to sit in the fence or pussyfoot around, so we have to stand up and be counted. We have to stand up and be counted. We have to stand up and be counted.
James, you're beginning to repeat yourself. Thank you very much. And thank you, lads. Thank you.